Move. No. The only reason I swiped you was because you said I could beat you. So don't say no. You young pig, let me learn you. Everyone should have land that is rich and untouched. When you are born outside, and in a community of people that eat in the forest, you too will live that way. Understand this. Very few people live a life of eating the forest. 5 million people today live like this, and for the first 10,000 years of human existence so did everybody else. The invention of agriculture was not to farm the land, it was to farm the farmers. People now had the option of exploiting one another in order to fill their stomachs, instead of interfacing solely with the land itself. Agriculture was almost certainly not invented by farmers, and was the product of domination brought to extreme lengths. Listen you. Foraging or being a hunter-gatherer takes up only a few hours a day. And nobody tells you what to do. The only person responsible for your efforts is yourself.
You are just being Ayn Rand.
No. She did not live in the forest. Don't interrupt me. A person from a remote hunter-gatherer society in Brazil was brought on a plane for the first time. His reaction was only boredom, and wanting to go back. Technology gives people more opportunities to use people as tools. Technology is not invented by a consensus. Things do not become popular because they are chosen. They rather become an inconvenience to avoid, once a certain degree of popularity is reached. At this point the company will then degrade the quality of the product as much as possible.
My dad is right. He feels correct.
One more word out of you and I will make your ass turn a radiant purple. Are you bored?
I am bored. This is so boring. So,
technology creates a demand for the conversion of land into something that cannot be foraged. It eliminates the option of people feeding themselves through directly interfacing with the forest. It is the factories, roads, sidewalks, pipelines, and other buildings that are the reason for technology, not the device itself. And also the new opportunities to use people as tools.
Can I go? You're boring me.
I don't care about your feelings. The advent of technology and language in buildings is a blip on the timeline of human existence. It is an aberration that ultimately won't be of much consequence. Coercing others into doing work for you, exploitation, is rarely a choice. Its insidious nature allows it to spread like wildfire. How do you enforce non-coercion? How can you tell a person to stop telling someone else what to do, without doing that yourself?
You are so boring. I just want to go on FetLife and meet Adam with rope training.
Good. Almost nobody that lives in a non-hunter-gatherer society today chose it, because they left the forest. And almost everybody in the forest stays there. The only reason non-hunter-gatherer society has thrived is it is designed to be as difficult to leave as possible. That is not a system with potential for upward mobility.
But what if you eat a fruit and it makes you die?
This has actually not really ever happened. Do some research. The thought of living in the wild as being primitive, dangerous, disgusting, or crazy, this is just classic slander. This is classically how people talk about things they don't want you to do. The same has been said for many things. The slew of ailments in society amount to much more danger, violence, and negative emotion than could ever possibly be experienced in the forest.
But how will transgender people get their moans?
Do you not realize the fluidity of genders themselves? Boy and girl have meant endless different things throughout time. The desire for anyone trans or otherwise to understand a portion of their identity as gender is directly informed by the consequence of gender in a society rooted in coercion of others. I would go as far to say at least a binary understanding of two genders, male and female, comes directly from how, when this understanding is implemented, it can directly serve one gender disproportionately and make it easier for males to get ahead. Much like if everyone called themselves Hamburger Restaurant, it would be an even battle. But if one can call themselves McDonald's and the other Burger King, you can get ahead more easily if you are born into a family that works for McDonald's.
You are sexist, and I am disappointed to find you were circumcised.
This pressure to be of a gender is put on everybody. Everybody can relate to being expected to relate to a gender that does not precisely fit them.
But trans people are 5,000 times more likely to be murdered.
The existence of trans people bears consequence on the thought of binary gender or male domination. If men cannot represent differentiation by being born with a penis, then they have less of a case for why they are indeed men.
But then why is it trans women that are treated even worse?
You have to understand that these women are seen as men, and the perpetrators of the violence against them is done by men. Men are more concerned with men deviating from the binary, as the thought is for men. This is why when it comes to gays, there is more violence against gay men.
You speak of men so much, yet you won't even look at me.
Men is not what I mean being perceived as a man who is not gay and is not trans, and is not also of another gender. That doesn't necessarily means that he or they or she is any of these. We are pitted against each other, as we are not born into opportunity to interface directly with the land. You claim to be against transphobia, but you have a job. You realize that you chose to decrease the chances of a trans person having a job. With your non-empathetic non-trans ass,
I have never been so bored in my entire life.
I'm boring you. We were born with penises and we cling to our gender as it is our best bet at getting ahead. It is the same as feminism, where people will advocate for equality as equality will increase the amount of female power.
But there are male feminists. I am one.
To be a male feminist does not decrease the amount of male power. You are probably just an asshole.
Some of us must care about equality. I believe in equality.
Then die. You will be more like people that die. Or at least get robbed and put in critical condition. If nobody is taking a hit, nobody gets equal. Reality is such that people with a lot get more quicker than people with less. So if everybody is increasing their amount of power, the imbalance will at best increase at a slower rate of increase.
I don't want to sacrifice what I have.
You're kind of cute for a Jew. People are born into different amounts of opportunity and threat of violence, but we all are ultimately at each other's throats. Excluding the 5 million hunter-gatherers living today, babies are born and immediately put into clothes made by people not much older than them. We are living in a giant tiger cage, and trying to only avoid tigers, but nobody dares to leave the cage.
Your metaphors are shit, bro.
In American violent relocation of African people, the hundreds of years of slavery were the least of the injustices caused. The horrific violence was in bringing millions of people who were not hunter-gatherers to a land that could not be foraged. That was owned entirely by non-African people. To own nothing and have everybody you know own nothing, to not even have a family, or even an education or experience working at a job, or to even know how to read and write. That is a death sentence. Especially when the only people who could help you were just done whipping you in the back.
But what about their children?
It is the same situation.
No, the children of the slave owners, they could help.
That's us. You just said you wouldn't give up your job for that trans girl. This is how slavery mainly functions today. There are now more slaves than there were in the 1600s. And it doesn't really have to do with race outside of Mauritania. Slavery is about relocation of people. This itself is horrific violence. Slavery is often much more short-term, with the slave only being kept a couple of years. They can and often are left in critical condition as they are not seen as assets or long-term possessions. They are quickly disposed, and often die shortly after as they have been relocated and traumatized and may have developed addictions and other ailments they have no means of getting help for.
You are not serious. That is not what I am told.
There is no political agenda to talk about the majority of human suffering. Only the specific cases where you are expected to react in a way serving somebody else's agenda.
By that logic, why should I trust you?
Because I am just a person, not a news channel that's content is moderated by the military of its nation.
But I still never hear the word slavery.
Today it is called human trafficking, or sex trafficking, or bonded labor.
I am bored already.
You're bored.
Yeah, but that just sounds like prostitution. I actually think sex work should be legal.
Jew. These girls are forced to take deadly addictive drugs and put through countless traumatic sexual experiences at the hands of violent ringleaders, in addition to their horrific relocation and severance from their previous life. It is not the sex-positive empowerment that you're talking about. Legality plays a mixed role in this case, but the act itself is a complete stripping of all the prostitute's chances of leading a successful life, if even surviving the experience. Yeah.
Isn't bonded labor just debt?
I'm trying really hard to like you. There are tens of thousands of brick kilns in Pakistan that are worked entirely by slaves. People are given false promises and are given a loan to make bricks all day long, and sleep in small rooms with little food where they often die of disease. The kilns themselves are extremely dangerous, and many workers die loading and unloading the bricks. This is a case where high interest rates on the loan aren't even used, as usury is illegal there. They are simply paid very little, and if they ever come close to paying off their debt, they are sold to another kiln, or the owner will come and destroy all the bricks they made that day. This is only one example, where thousands in a desperate situation are tricked into being relocated and stripped of any other opportunity. Making slavery illegal has made it worse, but it's fucks like you that would not legalize it again, because you don't actually care how many slaves there are. Money is again an invention made to serve its creators alone. Like gender, agriculture, and all types of technology, money itself exists to create opportunity for exploitation like a surplus of vegetables. But it is both easier to create money than vegetables, as well, much more importantly controlling who creates it. Most money is created by small banks through their form of offering small home and business loans. In a fractional reserve banking system, when someone makes a deposit, the bank only needs to keep a percentage of that person's money. It can then lend out the rest of it, as a loan to be paid back with interest. Yet the person who deposited can still withdraw what they put in, so the bank effectively creates new money when they gave out that loan. This is how most money in the world is created.
But what about the interest?
The bank does not create money to pay back the interest, but it also gives loans to many people so some people can get the money to pay it back from others.
But what about the others?
The banks create money that legally needs to be paid back to them. This is such that people will work in jobs that serve the interests of the bank, such that they can then pay back loans to the bank with interest. And incidentally, some people cannot pay back their loans, because the money to do so doesn't exist.
You make it sound like the banks run everything. But I have my money. I got it from my job.
Where did the person that paid you get the money? And where did they get the money? All money in existence started as a loan to be paid back to the bank with interest, with most being owed to small banks by people and small businesses, and a comparatively small amount being owed to central banks that effectively print paper money. All money in existence is somebody else's debt, owed back to the bank.
The government is so bad.
The Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland is the central bank of all central banks. It is not owned by the government. The small banks I was talking about earlier are also not owned by the government.
So what about Bitcoin? Or you think we should just barter?
I am bored of you. Both of those would be better, but if you were paying attention at all. People need to be born into access to land that they can forage.
But I am a vegan.
Your taxes fund the government that sanctions the meat industry, and you create demand for buildings that kill animals and their development and maintenance. You also buy things, thus giving people cash to purchase meat.
Those are all really bad arguments.
When we are able to eat the forest and are free from the coercion each other, we can interface directly with the earth. There are thousands of different kinds of food in the forest you will never find in any grocery store, restaurant, or farmer's market. It is the healthiest diet.
So we probably have to eat raw too.
No. People have been cooking forever.
Doesn't that take technology?
No. When we can interface directly with the forest and have much more free time and different kinds of food that is extremely healthy and close relationships with others and be more safe and less alone.
You mean like every other species? Also, that wasn't a sentence. What you just said.
This has nothing to do with being outdoorsy. It is only that every other option is nothing more than the consequence of making others do things for us.
I hate you.
If you believe that an action you would never want to do should also never be wished upon a stranger, then you cannot be against eating the woods. Now come here, big guy.